So there you go. The debate, well, if you want to use robust, we'll find out. The National Assembly did have a look at it. Let's bring you up to speed now on the latest thinking about this. Let's head to Abuja for that. Markwe?
Thank you, Chamberlain. We have with us in the studio Senator Chukwuka Otazi, who is the Chairman, Senate Committee on Primary Health Care and Communicable Diseases. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
The pleasure is mine.
He's also the Vice Chairman. I forgot to mention this. He's the Vice Chairman, National Security and Intelligence Committee. We also have with us Honorable Abdulrazak Namdes, who's the Chairman, Health Committee on the Army. Gentlemen, you're welcome to our studios this morning.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much.
Well, yesterday, let's just say throughout this week now, since the National Assembly resumed duties, security has been on the front burner of discussions. So far, I think yesterday, the House and the Senate, even though it wasn't a joint session, in both their respective chambers, had very extensive discussions on this. Can you tell us what the Senate eventually resolved to do and how they hope to make a difference to those who are looking to them to do so?
Well, you see, the Senate of the Federal Republic rose to the occasion yesterday, having spent a couple of weeks at home for Christmas and New Year vacation. And during the period, the security situation was almost getting out of hand. Those of us who used the period to travel during the Christmas period, we discovered that we couldn't get travel or parts of the north we wanted. You know, for example, the Senate President's son had wedding in Kano. You know, to access Yobe, where the state government did the reception for him, was impossible. You know, the road and all the activities, it opened our eyes. Some of us who are down south, who don't know what is happening, not so much, you know, and every day is being reported, you know, that one thing led to another, you know, killings, you know, many people displaced, you know, people can't travel on the roads and all that. That made us say that when we had our first sitting on Tuesday, after executive session, we agreed that yesterday we are going to devote the whole yesterday for a serious discussion on security, national security, and how we can handle that. So that we can, because we're elected people. The presidency, the president and us, we are all elected people. The governors, it's our duty to look at this issue and find it. And then after looking at all that, the Senate resolved, you know, gave 2 weeks to committee, the committee will consider, to look into this and come back after all this discussion. Come back with a proper advice, you know, a kind of advisory that we can sit down with the president and see how we can find a solution. You know, because things are getting hard. Nigerians want peace. Nigerians want to go about their lawful businesses without let or hindrance. And we are not having that. You know, the military have been doing their level best. The national security has been doing his level best with all people in his team. You know, but things are not abating. So we decided that we are going to look at this. We're even inviting the Inspector General of Police, because beyond all those issues, we said the community policing is ending. We want him to come over and also tell us his own roadmap.
Some people think that that's routine now. I mean, the invitation usually extended to the Inspector General of Police seems to be becoming routine. It's not yielding any results, is it?
Well, you see, it has become routine, but we haven't had access with this Inspector General of Police since he came on board. We haven't had time with him. It was Idris we had in 8th Assembly, you know, and it was checkered, that experience. So, but with this seasoned Inspector General of Police, you know, with his background, you know, as in an Interpol and all that, the experiences he brought to this office, most previous IGs didn't come with that.
You think that the results will be different?
Yes, we will, definitely.
Okay, let's look at what the House has come up with. Part of the resolutions of the House is that the service chiefs must go. Is that correct, Honorable Namdas?
Yes, this was part of the resolutions that was reached yesterday. also like the Senate did their own, we in the House of Representatives also dedicated the whole session yesterday discussing security.
The question I was just going to, I just wanted to confirm that indeed it was the entire House that came up with that resolution.
Yeah, it was a resolution of the House.
Some people will argue that does the problem lie with the service chiefs or the system that the service chiefs have to operate with or on?
I think most of the decisions, particularly the argument was that the service chiefs as of today were appointed in 2015. And the revised Armed Forces of Nigeria terms of conditions of service states that you appoint them for 2 years and can also be reappointed. And the House have a feeling that they were appointed in 2015 and reappointed in 2017, which then means that by 2019, the tenure ends, and therefore some people should come on board, and therefore, because they've done their best also, therefore, they probably, if there is a new service chiefs in place, they may be able to look at it differently. However, this decision is advisory. And I want to say that, in the House or in the Senate, once a resolution is reached, whether you are against it or not, it's immaterial. It becomes the position of the House. So whether you are against it or not, this is because it's the majority, and everybody must honor on to this decision that was reached. However, that is just advisory, just as is also said, because it is the executive that do the appointments. And where the legislature needs to make confirmations, you do that. However, we feel that these are elected people, and therefore, like I'm from Adamawa State, the current chairman of Michika, we know what happened. He was murdered by insurgents, and a lot of kidnappings and what have taken place. However, we know that as chairman Army, I know that also the Army have also done their best. They are also challenged in certain things. But this is the feelings that comes out from the House, and I'm confirming it to you now.
What are the steps? Because right now, it was saying that community policing is on the lips of almost everyone. We're not very certain if everyone understands, just what community policing is all about and whether we're agreed on the definition and how it's going to be implemented. We know that the president has said he supports community policing and the federal government is willing to fund it. But is the National Assembly clear on what the executive means by community policing and what the funding process will look like?
Well, you see, that's the essence of the Senate's inviting the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Muhammad Adamu, to appear before us, so that when he comes, he will bring his roadmap. We will know what they think about community policing. Maybe, if it is different from what other states in the Federation have, we will see how we can, marry both. Because this is a federation. I said it yesterday when I contributed on the issue. You see, we are a federal government. There is no uniformity here. We are not a unitary government, that what applies in state A applies in state B. No. There must be variation, depending on your understanding, depending on your resources, depending on your own approach. We already have a lot of contraptions of our security groupings in the states, So we already have that. In Kano, you have the
Hisba.
Yeah, the Hisba. Hisba, that you have civilian JTF. If you go to Enugu, we have the vigilante. We have the forest guards. If you go to other states, everybody has his own. Because this is a federation, we will now come back and agree that nationally this is what is obtainable. But the states still have their rights within this because it's a federation to think out what they think best to solve a problem in their own area. So if it's not something that you just come say,
size fits all.
One size fits all. No, it's not it. That's it. So people have to jettison this idea. So because each time people want to talk about this, they say, no, we don't want this, we don't want that, we don't want... No, you have to want it. You have to allow it. Because we are a federal government. That is diversity. The federal system of government is all about diversity. in approach, in terms of how you solve your problems, in the way you even contextualize issues, the way you understand them, and the way you want to find solution to them. That is it. So that is the beauty of it. And we must allow, get this. But you see, because the military governed this country for a long time, you know, at the federal level, you know, people, and they turned the federal system of government into unitary form of government to suit their command structure. People, even in a democracy, people who are still thinking like in military ideas. It doesn't suit. We have changed, and Nigerians must accept that this is a federation. If the Southwest wants Omotekun, allow them. That solves their problem. It makes this, it removes headache from the president. You know, so he has to solve that. Then if you if it's not central, say that this is the approach, let them do it. Southwest, northwest, northeast, let them find solution. So that the president will be less encumbered to face other issues.
Interestingly, the president was quoted as saying, I was taken aback by what is happening in the Northwest and other parts of the country. During our campaigns, we knew about Boko Haram. What is coming now is surprising. It's not ethnicity or religion. Rather, it's one evil plan against the country. That's what he said when a delegation from Niger State came to visit him. Was there any discussion in the House over decentralization of the police as being one of the solutions to confront the current happenings in the country?
Well, before that, I want to say that the speaker in his speech stated clearly, for example, about the idea of Amachakun. And he said that he is aware that people are, some are against, some are for. But I think the most important thing is that he drew the attention of the parliament, and in particular directed the minority leader and the majority leader, that they should sit down and bring bills that will seek to amend the constitution that can accommodate this issue of Amachokun. Because it's good that we have a legal, but can have a law that can have that. Because interestingly, we in the National Assembly, there are things we cannot do, we cannot legislate on. It's only in the houses of assembly that can do that legislation. But you also know that when you do constitutional amendments, there are items that both of us legislate on. And then, for example, if you are doing a major constitutional amendment, you will require even a two-thirds of the state houses of assembly to also be on board before it gets through. And therefore, we are looking forward to see how we can have this. Since this is Nigeria, as he said, let us have a law that can come out so that we can, all of us can realize that, okay, this person should do this. And he identified that there is localization of issues. In my state, as he said also, we have the present governor of the state, Amadou Fintri, has also worked closely with, I'm talking of Adamawa State now, with hunters to see how he can be able to even give them some welfare to do so. And about state policing, even in the last, when we do a constitutional review, I think we have also agreed that, look, there is need for us to have this idea of a state police. The point here is, the fear has always been that chief executives of state or governors may use that, that platform to begin to harass and intimidate political opponents. But I think we have gone past this now. Whether you like it or not, you are going to be 4 years governor or 8 years governor, and you will be a free citizen. And the same what you did yesterday, somebody happened to you, I think we should learn to live with that. And therefore, there is need to have even the state police, so that you have the state police, you have your own structure, whether you call it a motoko, you call it whatever, so that it's guided by law. And truly, the idea of security is not for a particular individual. It is something that has to do with all of us, myself, the media, ourselves, the stakeholders must be there. And if that is true, let everybody come with an issue, but let it not be haphazardly done, or let it not be politically motivated. It should be done with the best interest to reduce crises so that Nigerian citizens will know that, look, the idea of government is security and welfare.
Do you think that there is enough consensus on the part of the National Assembly and the executive, or has there been a forum to actually discuss the issue of security? We know that in the 8th Assembly, the Senate did try to convene a security summit. It was called a National Security Summit, I believe. Yes. And the executive, I think even members of the judiciary were invited, and there was a very robust conversation. And we do not know what came out of that in terms of what Nigerians feel with their security situation, and whether we have not dwelt too much on talk rather than, you know, decisive action.
Well, you see, in the 8th Assembly, we convoked that National Summit.
Yeah.
at NAF Center, where we brought everybody, all the dramatic personnel involved in the security architecture of the country. And we discussed extensively on the way forward. Luckily, the present Senate president, as leader of the Senate then, was the chairman. You know, so he's occupying this. And we asked, in our discussion yesterday, we asked him to fish out that resolution, that commitment we made in 8th Assembly. You know, repackage it in the face of the present challenges that is facing, security challenges facing the country, with a view to marrying both and then addressing this issue. So that this is what we agreed. We are united. You know, that unlike before, that we have to do something serious about this. You see, in a Igbo setup, you know, we say that akpamo oko carrier, you put a kocha, meaning that if the scrotum is itchy and you try to handle it, bring it out and give it a thorough, you know, a massage so that you get freed. That's what we are doing. We are no longer trying to sit down and discuss in exclusion of the country. We are bringing everything to the fore. We are doing all this. Everybody is coming. This issue, we are not talking about party. Nobody is, he says, across the aisle, nobody was just talking serious this thing. We face the national security as a country, as a people, that we have to address this issue. So with the understanding we enjoy today, that the 9th Assembly have with the legislative executive understanding, we feel that we can achieve our ends. We feel that once we tidy all these issues, sit with the Mr. President, we are going to solve this problem. Headlong, because enough of excuses. People are tired. That's why we have to do what we did yesterday.
Do you ever see a situation whereby, because I know that at one of the assemblies, I can't quite remember which one, there was a motion moved that was a motion or some bill for some briefing by the president, or I think it was a motion moved that the president should be made to address the National Assembly on matters of security. Is that motion, or is there any thinking around that today?
There was that in the 8th Assembly.
Yeah.
However, the agreement yesterday again was part of the resolution yesterday in the House of Reps in particular, was for us to have a tripartite meeting with the president. That is the Speaker, the Senate President, the President, and of course even the service chiefs, so that we should have an understanding. Let's discuss this thing very well. We appropriate funds for all the armed forces and any other agencies of government, and therefore we should be concerned about how that is being done. What are their challenges? We in the 8th Assembly too, remember, we also had a serious discussion like that. But then, you know, the president has done one thing that really moved us forward, and I would think that if we could come together, that could help. That is the issue of national security strategy paper that was launched I think this late December or so. Now in 2019, part of it is to identify the challenges. Now that challenges have been identified. Now we want to have it together. Let's see what we can do as legislators, what the executive can do, so that we can together come forward. My concern about this security as Chairman Committee on Army is that attention is paid to the military to the extent that as if people forget that police exist. The truth is that the traditional job of the armed forces is to protect the territorial integrity of this country. However, Section 217 of the Constitution empowers the president to invite the military in case of any insurrection within the country. That is done. But if that is done, it's expected that it should happen within a time frame. Once they are through, they should leave the place and allow the police to take place. But you know, all this blame that is being on the armed forces is as if the entire internal security should be handled by the army or the armed forces. It should be done also by the police. And therefore, that's why there's the need for this discussion. The police are trying, but they need to be trained also. They need equipment just like the army also require. Let Nigerians have confidence in the police. Because my sister, I come from the Northeast. Today, if you go to a community and say let the army move away and allow the police to handle, the people will even run out because for lack of confidence. Now, but if we can train the police, give the confidence, let Nigerians have confidence in the police, whatever they do, and they move out, then...
I was going to chuckle and say the confidence is earned. It's not just a matter of belief.
No, I agree, but
Yeah.
we need to do our part. The police or the army are not magicians. They should also have the firepower so that they can fight. Because part of the allegations, the argument going around is that sometimes the insurgents appear to be more stronger in terms of equipment than even those our armed forces. This is the allegation going on. And if that is true, they deserve, for us to also say they are not doing their part, we must also fully equip them. Until that is done, I think we should be...
Are we clear, though, on the reason why we have a recent spike in violent crimes in different parts of the country? Do we, when the president says that there is an evil plan against the country, do we have any other information? Or, I don't know, is the National Assembly aware of any reason why we're recently experiencing an upsurge in violent crimes across the country?
Well, you see, we are not here to discuss intelligence, which goes to the people who are the certain offices, occupy certain sensitive offices in the Federation. But what we know is that the local conflicts we have, and that is the trouble with the Boko Haram and the insurgents over there, has been intentionalized. You see, the local conflict has become, have intentional dimension. That you see, even at a certain time last year, Mr. President will quote that people who are doing all this trouble are not Nigerians. You know, and all that. We discussed this thing yesterday. We looked at it, and I brought the issue of the ECOWAS protocol. And as it concerns the free movement of people from West African region. Is it being advantageous to Nigeria, or is it working against national security of Nigerians? The entry visa, free entry visa on arrival that the government has encouraged, is it helping the matter or worsening the matter? So these are the issues. And then these people who, the Boko Haram are having superior firepower. Are they buying it in the markets, in the local markets in Adamawa, or in Yola, or in Meduguri? the people, they are funded from outside. This is their business. That's what we have to, that's a part of the issue that the Nigerian National Intelligence Unit has to find out. This terrorism financing, how is this thing coming? So when you look at it, you have the local problem we're having in Nigeria has international dimension. So we have to look into those people which countries are funding, who are supplying these people ammunition to visit harm on this country here. And I said it yesterday too, in our discussion. Look, you see, Nigeria have been heading the in West Africa, leading in West Africa. You know, wherever you have insurrection, we go down and quell it. If you remove a government unconstitutional, we go and restore one. In international politics, do you think the other big powers are happy about it? They don't. So Nigerians have to sit up and know that the challenge, you know, some of these things we're having here is not for fun. It has international dimension that want to cripple us here so that we will be weak. If we are weak, we may not achieve a lot of things we want for ourselves, and Nigeria remains a market.
Well, let us take a break at this point. We'll come back and wrap up this conversation when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Well, we still have with us in the studio Senator Chukwuka Utazi, who is the Chairman, Senate Committee on Primary Health Care and Communicable Diseases, and also Vice Chairman, National Security and Intelligence Committee. We also have with us Honorable Abdulrazak Namdas, who's the Chairman, House Committee on Army. We'll now go over to Lagos for some questions from my colleagues. Chamberlain?
Well, it's interesting, Senator Utazi. This one is for you. Oftentimes we've heard people talk about national security architecture and the need to restructure and revamp it. I just want to ask, what are the components of the current security architecture that we have now, and what needs to be done about it?
Well, thank you for your question. The national security architecture we're talking about is holistic. You talk about a gathering of information by the Department of Military Intelligence. You have the Nigerian Intelligence Agency. They are handling the information for the country. The Department of State Security, the Army, the police. All these people combined form the security architecture of the country. And it does appear that when you hear the National Assembly argue that something has to be done drastically about it, it means that we want to get the people who are involved, the headship of that body, sit down there and find solution. What is their trouble? Why is it impossible to get done with these Boko Haram insurgents and get them away out of the country? How can't we just manage ourselves? Why is the banditry that is reported now is almost everywhere, from northeast to north central to northwest? Why should it be so? The kidnappers that are everywhere now in the forest. People don't use Kaduna route again, and so many other routes from Maiduguri to Damaturu is impassable. The same way in Katsina, the same way in the southeast.
Senator Otazi, it's interesting that you are mentioning all of these things that are happening and that are giving everyone concern, including the National Assembly. But the question again is, why is it that these occurrences happen before the intelligence gets to the people who are supposed to deal to deal with these things? I mean, one would expect that this information will be ahead of the security agencies and the security architecture, as you have talked about, and not the security systems or the security officers following all of these things. One would expect that we should be proactive. How do you react to that?
Well, you see, the thing, that's why we're here now. Because if the people that are concerned have all this information, earlier before this thing come to fore, we will not be here. So that's why we want a rejig. That's why the National Assembly unanimously, both the House of Reps and the Senate are unanimously agreed that we have to retool. We have to sit down and look at what is happening and then find solution to it. If it is the persons that are there, we'll have the courage to say, thank you, I've served very well. Let's try another hand. You don't just get stuck with one person all the time. And the same problem has not been solved for 4 years. Getting to 5 years. How many months now? We will be celebrating 1 year in office. And we are still discussing the issue that brought this government into power. Because part of it, why the Buhari administration campaign in 2015, people felt that this insurgency trouble in the has overwhelmed the government of Jonathan. And then people said a former military head of state, an army man, and all that coming, but he will be better. It's part of this, and I gave him that opportunity. Right. And up to now, 2020, we are still discussing the issue. From pushing the insurgents into the Sambisa. They are now in every home, every state. Assuming so many different dimensions. That's right. Because that's what we are looking at. The intelligence, all the information gathering network that they should have gotten before they started attacking, they are not done. All right. So we said to retool.
Let's bring in Honorable. Let's bring in Honorable Namdas for a moment. And I remember earlier on he spoke about plans to have a tripartite meeting between the President, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And people will wonder, I mean, seeing that security has been a major challenge. I mean, Senator Otazi was saying that's one of the promises this government made before coming into office. So one would expect that these meetings would have been happening on a regular basis. So on one hand, why haven't these meetings been happening regularly? Why do we need to have, a major announcement before these meetings happen? And also, what can we hold on to after that meeting? What should Nigerians be expecting?
Thank you so much. I think you need to know that the president is always being briefed either on a weekly, daily basis on the security situation in the country. That may not also be on the same part that we will be done the same way. Since the president is always being briefed, we also have committees in the House that interact with various security agencies. And that is why we feel, okay, there is need for a synergy now. Let's sit down with the Senate, the House, and the President, in fact, including the service chiefs that our opinion was made on them. Let us sit down together and see where the problem is. Because the idea is that the executive is on function, but we are legislators, we are parliamentarians, we appropriate funds, and we will know if there are challenges of funds, we should be able to know. And that is why when the speaker came, got elected, the first thing he did was, okay, let me summon the service chiefs first, sort of discuss with them because he's passionate about the issues of security. And he took time to even travel to most of the Northeast, even to Katsina. So, and then let us sit together so that we can be able to know. And one of the things that came out of that meeting first was that, look, we cannot continue to fund security with ordinary budget. That cannot work. We must try to look out of the box to see how, look, we can fund security. And the issue is not just funding is one of the issues. I'm not saying it's the major issue. Strategy is also there. And even synergy in terms of getting intelligence is also important, because part of the issues we had last time was, look, there are synergy between the security agencies. But I think that has been addressed to some level. And that's why we need to come back. Because if a situation was defeated some few months back and there's a resurgence of this upsurge in security attacks, what is the problem? Let's know, let the executive know, also the legislature know. And we believe that by the time we are able to, our leaders are able to sit down together, I can assure you that we will be able to resolve the matter and we take the next step so that we can be able to have lasting peace and for the country.
For Nigerians who are still very skeptical that anything is going to come out of this, you have talked about a tripartite meeting and you have given some hope of what you believe will come out of it. Yeah. For a lot of people who are saying, this is what we've seen before. We've seen the anger of members of the National Assembly, especially when they come back from holidays. Like they've just felt the pulse of the people and, you know, they're no longer cocooned, you know, by themselves in the National Assembly. But oftentimes it usually ends there. How do we know that this drive, this anger which the National Assembly feels, the passion with which you're talking about this security matters, will be sustained until a solution is found?
Well, for it, the first sign that is going to be sustained is to discuss it in the open. That by the National Assembly coming in the open, the same day, the House, the Senate sitting, that's the first sign that we are really serious about what we are saying. And we are going to follow through. It's no longer a question. Of course, the National Assembly you have now is not the assembly you used to have. Yes, I'm telling you the truth, because let's face it. We just came back when we were after our inauguration. You know, we moved and agreed, the leadership steered us towards the part of the direction of moving the budget cycle from January to December. We did. We came back again and faced the issue of the problem of electricity in the country. I brought that bill addressing the national issue. I brought that motion. After discussing it, a roundtable was organized. So it's no longer the same National Assembly that stays here and wants the executive to do everything. No. We are taking the fight to the executive.
Okay, just quickly, I want you to quickly comment, because you're also the chairman, Senate Committee on Primary Healthcare and Communicable Diseases. Are you putting an eye on this coronavirus outbreak that's happened in China and spreading to other parts of the world?
Yes.
And looking at measures that Nigeria is putting in place?
Yes, it is a major challenge facing all of us here.
Yeah.
And because the Chinese people we have the Chinese population in Nigeria is much, you know, so it poses security threats to the country.
Yeah, I do know that. I'm just asking if you're also keeping
we have keeping an eye.
Attention
you see,
on
the National Center on Disease Control, working hand in hand under the Minister for Health, Dr. Sage, they have been working around the clock, you know, trying to get things done, especially the people who are coming from China.
So you are satisfied with the measures being put in?
Yes, we are working very hard towards that. We're not relenting.
Okay.
Because if we don't, we are going to have a huge problem here.
Honorable Namdas, do you want to quickly add to the drive that you believe that National Assembly will have to sustain conversations on security until we find a solution?
I think that is what we have started. And since the beginning of the Night Assembly, that was what our leader took very seriously. And I can assure you, given the discussion we had yesterday, through bipartisan means, we know that this is an issue that affects everybody. So for us also to even survive as politicians, survive to see Nigeria remain to one, we must be seen not only to making laws, but to see that these things that deserve our attention in terms of having laws that can have good security, I think we are going to do that. And I can assure our leadership will on top of it.
Gentlemen, I have to thank both of you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Senator Chukwuka Utazi is the Chairman, Senate Committee on Primary Health Care and Communicable Diseases. He's also the Vice Chairman, National Security and Intelligence Committee. And we also had with us Honorable Abdulrazak Namda, who is the Chairman, House Committee on Army. Gentlemen, thank you once again for coming on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you.
The program continues shortly. Please stay with us.